Welcome to Made at Home Fill the Freezer. I'm Katie Cullum with the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. I'm the Family and Consumer Science Agent in White County, Arkansas. With me is Becca Stackhouse from the University of Georgia, and she's the Family and Consumer Science Agent in Crisp County, Georgia. Today we're going to talk about mixes and marinades and how you can use those in your freezer meals. We're also going to take a look at the nutrition labels to see how much you can save as far as sodium and fat when you make your own mixes and marinades. So, have you seen the new food labels? This is a good example. So, when you look at those labels, the first thing you want to do is check the serving size and the number of servings. The new labels have made this a little bit bigger and a little bit more realistic. The next thing you want to do is look at the calories. This font for the calories is much bigger than it used to be, and calories count, so pay attention to that. Next, you want to know about your fats and reduce your sodium for health. So, saturated fat is one thing that you need to limit. You also want to look at your cholesterol and your sodium, and those percent daily values can help you as you look at those things. The last thing to look at is the added sugars or the sugar added during processing. So now this includes how much of a product is added sugar and how much is naturally occurring sugars. And this is really important so that you can see exactly how much sugar that you are getting. So let's compare a store-bought taco seasoning to a homemade taco seasoning. So a store-bought has a little bit different serving size than the homemade. So you have to consider that. You may notice that there are more calories in the homemade taco seasoning, which is the white, versus the store-bought, which is the yellow. And this could be mostly because of the serving size. But I really want you to look at the sodium content. The store-bought in the yellow has 300 milligrams of sodium per serving. The homemade in the white only has 80 milligrams of sodium per serving, and the serving sizes are bigger on the homemade versus the store-bought. That's a pretty big difference. In the store-bought, that's 13% of the sodium that you need for the whole day. And in the homemade, it's only 3%. So that's much less. Now remember, on those percent daily values, if it's 5% or less, it's low. If it's 20% or more, it's high. So 13% isn't high, but it certainly isn't low either. So that's what some things that you really want to look for when you're looking at those labels. I picked up an Italian seasoning mix, and it has 320 milligrams per serving, and there's 8 servings in this one little packet. Another interesting thing is it has sugars in them. And the first ingredient listed is sugar. I'm not sure why I need that much sugar in an Italian seasoning mix. I could probably make my own Italian seasoning mix and save a lot of sugar and salt. So why use homemade seasonings? Because you control the ingredients. You can make your own flavor combinations. For example, I made a homemade taco seasoning, just reusing an old spice container. And we don't like our taco seasoning to be very spicy. So I can add other flavoring and less of the spicy stuff so that it's something that we can eat a little bit more comfortably. Using your own homemade mixes means you're not going to pay for all those different seasonings. You can make your own flavor combinations. It also makes a really good gift idea. Instead of, a little package, you could give out a nice, pretty homemade package. And there's fewer things to buy because you can make your own. For example, in the recipe for a lasagna, you could use a homemade Italian seasoning instead of just buying it. Because you may like garlic better than oregano. And so you could put more garlic, less oregano, and make your lasagna taste really good for you. This also works for other things, pumpkin pie spice, cinnamon sugar. You don't have to buy that. You can just mix cinnamon that you already have and sugar that you already have. You can make the Mexican blend, even a kind of ranch mix instead of using a package, because this homemade ranch mix tastes really good and it has a lot less sodium, so it's healthier. Now, what about marinades? Marinades can be easy. You need an acid like a balsamic vinegar or red wine vinegar or other kind of vinegar, and this weakens the protein in meat and seafood, and it gives it some flavor. You also need some fat like olive oil, which adds moisture and it keeps the food from sticking on the grill if you're grilling. You can also do some aromatics, spices to penetrate the surface of the meat, give it some flavor. So you could use store-bought, homemade things, doesn't matter because you're making the marinade. So some things to keep in mind as far as food safety. Only taste the marinade before you put the meat in there. Once you expose that marinade to the raw meat, you don't need to be eating that anymore. And you always want to marinate in the refrigerator because it doesn't need to stay out at room temperature for very long. If it's a 15-minute marinade, that's a little different from something that's 6 to 8 hours. And it really depends on the food as to how long you want to marinate, but most of the time it needs to go in that refrigerator. You also want to avoid cross-contamination. You don't want to put that meat on the same cutting board you're going to use to cut up a salad. So avoid cross-contamination. And you want to discard the marinade after soaking the meat. I know it seems like a waste, but it's been exposed to that raw meat and you don't want to take a chance with that. To marinate, you can use a non-reactive container. Now you can use a glass bowl with a lid. I like to use this sometimes because I can put it in the dishwasher and sanitize it, make sure it's really clean, and I'm not using too much plastic. I'm using something I already have in my kitchen. But you can also use bags because these are very easy on cleanup and just to freeze. This is a freezer bag, so I could put my marinade in there, put the meat in there, seal it up well, and freeze it. When I take it out of the freezer and thaw it in the refrigerator, it has plenty of time to marinate and thaw at the same time. And this is easy too. So it just depends. You can also use ceramic or stainless steel, but you want to do that safely. So mixes and marinades can help you expand your cooking, expand your flavors, and make them your own as you freeze. Now I'm going to turn it over to Becca and see what she's picking up from my freezer today.
Hi guys, welcome to this episode of Made at Home with our freezer edition. So this is mini turkey meatloaves. We're going to make them into meatballs because I forgot to get the small aluminum pans. So if you want to make mini meatloaves, you need to purchase some small aluminum pans to put them in. So I'm going to double the recipe, so I'm putting 2 pounds of ground beef in here. We need to put in our salt and our pepper. We've got 2 eggs. Then we're going to add in some salsa. So we need this whole jar of homemade salsa. We got it all nice and combined. So that salsa had tomatoes in it, it had cilantro, it had peppers, and it had onions in it. So it had all the ingredients we needed. So we're gonna make meatballs. We're gonna stick them in the freezer and let them freeze, and then when you're ready to use them, you'll pull them out and you'll cook them up. So you can also place these containers into the mini aluminum pans. If you get 5 of them, you'll be able to make 5 equal portions. So now that we've pulled our meatballs out of the freezer, we're gonna put them in our 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes.